It was
You a
great.
fine motherfucker. Shit.
Oh,
Was that not professional? I know I'm supposed to be an interviewer
I
right now.
think that was great. Thank you, babe.
Okay. All right, part 2.
Partition. Now my knees being ashy. Damn. What all is it showing on me?
From pretty, I don't got your feet in there.
Okay.
I don't got your crusties.
Thank you. Shit.
All right, so going from childhood to, let's say, your young adult years, teenage years, very pivotal years for everybody, especially in our community. With what we grew up with, being black, you being from Houston, a very well-known metropolis, right?
Yeah,
You like that word?
I do.
At what age, at what point do you remember starting to, as we say it, smell yourself? Realize your magnetism, whether it was your physical beauty, your voice, your power in your voice. When did you start to notice it's something to this candy shit?
I think it could have been the 5th grade, but definitely once I got to middle school, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, I was very clear that I was pretty. My mom always made sure that I knew how beautiful I was. She always made sure I had like the Tommy girl dressed down from head to toe. But as far as my magnetism, middle school and the 6th grade is where I first learned it.
Outside of your mom, what contributed to you realizing it in your environment at school? Was it the boys, the girls hating on you? Was it a particular experience?
It was kind of both. When I started meeting girls and their first response was, before I knew you, I didn't like you. I didn't like you at first. It's like, you just met me. Why didn't you like me? My older cousins would always tell me that that was a sign of jealousy. And it was also like my environments, middle school, high school, I always somehow ended up being what people would call like popular or well known. And it was just something that I noticed. I noticed that people wanted to be my friend. And I was never a smell myself with other people. It was just a knowing of who I was. It was a knowing that I was pretty. And it wasn't like I'm pretty and you're not. It was just, I feel good. I'm going to school. I got on my Tommy Hilfiger perfume. I just feel good. And it was just about me. It wasn't about like how I treated other people or showed up in those spaces.
How did it feel to get hated on by your peers?
I was very confused. It really hurt my feelings. Even to this day, it really hurts my feelings. I would have people that I thought were like really my friend. Girls that I thought were really my friend. Even to this day, people that I thought was really my friend. And then to find out that they aren't, that they don't love me in the way that I love them, that there is some type of jealousy or envy. It never made me upset. It really hurt my feelings. It really confused me. And I was the one that was like, they're not jealous of me. I've never been the person to say that another person is jealous of me. Probably just in 2023 is when I finally just started allowing myself to even use that word. My mom would always say, you know, you're very intelligent, you're very beautiful. And you have a beautiful family, you have a mom that loves you, you have support. For those who don't have that or desire to have that, it's difficult for them to be in your presence and also acknowledge that they have what you want. So she told me from a young age, sometimes it may be difficult for people to be your real friend. They may want to, but their behavior sometimes may show differently. And that's exactly what it was like. I would have people who seemed like they would really want to be my friend, and we would be friends. But all it takes is one little situation for somebody to show you how they really feel about you. One disagreement, one argument, one misunderstanding, and you get to see how a person really feels about you, how they will go from 0 to 100 and how they treat you, the things they say about you, the things that they throw in your face. And that's when I was able to realize if you say that and there was only one misunderstanding, That's how you've been feeling.
Right.
Those are the emotions that you've been holding and harboring. So when I feel deep love for someone because I'm an only child and I've always wanted to have friends, and to see them respond to me in that way, it's always confused me and it's always hurt my feelings.
And you literally just used the word confusing. You talk about jealousy and words like hate. You know, Nas is one of our favorites. And he literally got a line, I think, in the song Stay, where he said, hate is confused admiration.
Yeah.
So let's say, you know, if you had a daughter or you was counseling, you know, young girls in that position where they saw something in a classmate that they liked, but they didn't know how to express it, so it ultimately turned into them hating or being jealous or mean. What advice would you give to girls around the world that's going to see this and how to handle somebody's light that may make you feel insecure in some way, shape, or form?
Right. So first we have to dissect the issue of comparison,
Mm.
because their light is their light and your light is your light. So we have to first teach them how to step into their power and recognize that your light may look different, but it's still a light. And it shines extremely bright, just maybe in a different way. And so what we don't want to do is acquire another person's light or another person's blessing. You want to embody what was only meant for you. And then the other aspect of like jealousy or envy is to acknowledge it, to embrace it, and to actually own it. Because if you keep saying, I'm not jealous, whatever energy that you're holding on to is just going to continue to fester. And even adults will refuse to use the word jealous, to say that they're jealous. There's many times where I've had a situation with a certain person and I go through the list of how I feel. Am I feeling abandoned? Am I feeling misunderstood? Do I feel jealous? Do I feel envious? I'm allowed to ask myself that question because it's a normal feeling. And I think people are so caught up in their pride and their ego that they don't even give themselves permission to ask themselves, am I jealous? And it's okay if you are, but underneath the jealousy is inadequacy, not feeling confident in your own light. So now we have to find ways to help you become confident in who you truly are. What are your strengths? Like, I know that when I walk into a room, that room I will always command that room. I will always turn heads. That's just a knowing in me because I feel good about myself. People know how you feel about you when they first look at you before you even say anything out of your mouth. So if you don't feel good about yourself, 9 times out of 10, that is a part of what's causing the inadequacy and the lack of confidence. Let's start doing things to help you feel good about yourself. Let's list the things that may make you feel better. It may be your diet. It may be your regimen. It may be a daily routine. It may be having trust with yourself. It may be how you show up, your clothes. It could be anything. But before you compare yourself to another person, let's first start trying to figure out what can make you feel the best about yourself. When you feel good about yourself, other people don't even exist.
All right, and another question based on this dynamic. You know, growing up in Newark, New Jersey, in a different but similar type of hood, ghetto, metropolis, whatever you want to call it. I remember hearing as we started to grow up and become aware, probably around, I say maybe 11 or 12 years old, me and my male friends would hear a lot from girls. Oh, I don't got no female friends, right? So do experiences like this impact your ability to trust women as you grow up and get older?
I've never been that person that I felt like in school people just felt like it was cool to say I don't have female friends. I do understand why to some degree because girls were always in drama. They were always in mess. I was never in drama. I was never in mess. I've never been in a fight a day in my life. I have prior military and police background. But I was still the one that would smile when I'm trying to pull you over, you know? So I never had that rhetoric. And how women chose to look at me never made me look at them in that way. So I would still be open to having relationships with men and women. I have equally beautiful relationships with men and women. I've always been able to get along with anybody. That's why I've always said, if you got an issue with me, 9 times out of 10 it's you, because I don't judge people. I don't hurt people. I don't do things to make people feel uncomfortable. So my trust with women has never been a distrust. However, when a person shows me who they are the first time, I believe them. It's hard for me to unsee that. But as far as like the trust thing, I've always wanted to have camaraderie, friends, family, friends that felt like family. So that's kind of always what I was open to and what I'm still open to. But because I have been like mistreated, more so like within the past maybe 8 years, the criteria for a person to share space with me is different. It doesn't mean that I don't trust them. It just means that I'm clear and I know what people come with. They come with their trauma, they come with their wounds. And some people have the capacity to maneuver through them and some people don't. So my ability to not be standoffish but cautious is just because I just want to be mindful that a person doesn't project their insecurities onto me and they have all of the tools to work through that and it doesn't become my issue.
You had a lot of friends in high school, male and female. At a certain point, that ground was kind of ripped from under you. There was an experience where you talk about in your book, I believe, and we've spoken about it, where all of a sudden, almost at the drop of a hat, all of your female friends kind of flaked on you due to something that somebody said about you that was false, that wasn't true, but you couldn't prove that it wasn't, and they kind of made a decision instantaneously. How did that affect you?
Yeah,
How did that affect your relationship with women per se?
It didn't. It didn't. There has never been a situation to where I looked at women and was like, y'all the issue. Even though a lot of what has happened to me was caused by women, it never made me look at all women that way. It made me look at they ass that way. And people who have the same characteristics, personas, and identities that way. If I see a red flag, I listen. And these were friends, but the person who did it was actually a friend of me from like 5th grade, so that was a red flag that I looked past. I was young and I didn't really know that, that was a red flag that I should have adhered to. So it never affected how I viewed other women, but how I have been treated by women, how I've been abandoned by people who said that they were my friend for absolutely no reason. That caused a very deep depression. And now, well, I was 16, 17 at the time, and that caused a deep depression. But now it confuses me and it just hurts my feelings. And it's kind of that. But I don't take that and apply it to everybody else. I apply it to that person and it stay applied there. Like once you show that level of your being, there is no re-entry.
Got you. And women, of course, your relationship with women was never damaged, like you're saying. But to a large degree, you went through solitude where you didn't have as much access to sisterhood.
Right.
You've been out here in the past couple of years with all your different contributions to the community, if you will, globally. A lot of women know Candace. A lot of women would like to share space with Candace in some way, shape, or form. So you mentioned I'm not harboring on those things, but there are certain things I'm looking for and looking at when I'm getting to know somebody. What are some of the attributes a woman will have to have that you will be looking for to be able to be considered an actual friend and share space with you in that capacity?
One, I really pay attention to how people respond to other people when they're frustrated. That lack of patience, the lack of compassion a person has when there's a misunderstanding. And typically you don't know how a person, those type of attributes until you get there. So I can't say that there's a criteria that I am paying attention to, but more so it's just how you feel to my spirit. One thing that happened when I experienced the trauma with my friends in high school when they abandoned me, it made me hyper aware of who I can and who I can't trust. It made me hyper aware to where I'm constantly reading a person. I'm constantly reading their body language. I hear what they say and what they don't say. And I hear what they mean. I hear the words that they are about to say, but they change their mind to say something else. I hear all of that. And it was a hyper awareness because it came from a trauma of abandonment. So now when I'm having clients with people, I'm reading them left and right. And they're like, how do you know this? I know it because it was a defense mechanism. It was a recipe that came from a deep wound to where I had to read people to discern if I was going to feel safe around them. So the criteria for someone who is trying to be my friend in my space, in my circle, I have to feel safe around you. And I really don't have to hear you say anything. I don't have to see you do anything, because my body is designed to determine if I feel safe around you or not. If I don't, it's going to be a very surface relationship. If I do, then gradually we will go deeper. I've also learned that friendships are not meant to be made overnight, that they are a gradual progression into love. They are a gradual progression into trust. And I allow that to naturally happen. No matter how much I like someone, no matter how much I feel their spirit, it's not an intentional distance, but it is an intentional observation and allowing the flow of whenever our friendship is supposed to evolve. I surrender to allowing that to happen however and whenever it's supposed to happen. Not just because we met up, we cool, and everything feel good and we having a good time. I don't allow
So
that to
the
change.
ability to flow is necessary.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. These niggas, these young men, at what point did you start to become interested in the male species?
So I was never allowed to have a boyfriend until I was like maybe the 8th grade. I don't know if it was 8th grade, maybe I was 16, I don't know. I was able to call them my friends.
Was you liking boys before that?
Yeah, I thought boys were, I always had boyfriends.
Like actual boyfriends?
Yeah, like actual male friends. The first person that ever called my phone when I had a landline, I had my own phone line. Cause you know,
Yeah, it
you
was
got
lit.
the main line, and then you got your own phone line. So I had my own phone number, and his name was Raphael. And he called, and may I speak to Candace or whatever. So that was really cool. I always had male friends, but I think in 5th grade is when I recognized that I was starting to become attracted to boys.
Who was the first boy you liked?
His name was Key Wayne.
Come on, Key Wayne. That's the most Houston shit I ever heard.
It is. His name was Key Wayne. And I joined the student council because student council got to go do Christmas carols. We got to go to like Chuck E. Cheese and stuff like that. So I got time to spend time with him. He didn't care. I mean, I think he thought I was cute, but 5th grade, you're not really thinking about that. You just kind of doing what you see other people do.
You good. I'm gonna let you know.
Yeah, so yeah, his name was Key Wayne.
And from that point, when did it become more intentional as far as when you were like a boy, either not per se pursuing, but being open to his pursuit? When did you start to get comfortable with that?
Well, I knew I couldn't have a boyfriend until I got to high school. So middle school, my mama still knew them all. She still met them all. She spoke to all of them. No part of my childhood was ever a secret. I was able to really share everything with my mom about who I liked. That was an open conversation. But as far as being open to it, I experienced a lot of trauma with my cousins in regards to my level of detachment. I had to learn how to detach from people very early based on the things that they were going through in their life. I was taking on a lot of their emotions. So when it came to like boys liking me, it was like I wanted you to like me, but when it's time for you to ask me to be your girlfriend, it was like, hold on now. You're taking me too fast. I was never willing to do anything like that. Now I'll talk to you on the phone. We can laugh. We can have a great conversation. But when it's time for you to ask me to be your girlfriend, you probably won't hear from me anymore, because it was so overwhelming to do something that was that serious. I was still very innocent. And that just wasn't something that I was looking towards. So I wasn't really entertaining guys in that way until I was probably 16, 17.
Would fear be too strong of a word as far as fear of commitment, or just it being uncomfortable to think about that level of commitment?
Both. I was uncomfortable thinking about that level of commitment. It was fear of commitment. It was like,
How long did you carry that?
oh, for a very long time. I mean, up until my 20s, late 20s. Yeah, I just was the person. I would ghost you. I would not answer the phone. I would block your number because the people who liked me weren't just like, oh, I'm just going to see if she likes me. If she doesn't, I'm going to move on. They
It
were
was invested,
persistent.
yeah, no doubt.
And so once I recognized people who liked me were persistent, it made me cautious of even entertaining them because it felt aggressive. It felt energetically aggressive. And they're just trying to show how much they like me, flowers, cards, calling, being consistent. And to me, it was like, it was too much for me to handle. And then what if I liked you one day, which I did, and then the next day I didn't, which I didn't. So it's hard to explain to somebody that my nighttime feelings ain't the same as my daytime feelings. My daytime feelings, I'm not here for nothing like that. But my nighttime feelings is typically when a person starts to feel lonely or wanting to feel romantic, wanting to pillow talk, wanting to laugh, wanting to feel wanted, desired, needed. Nighttime is where those emotions tend to come and be a little bit more open and vulnerable. Daytime, I don't feel that way at all. So I was shape-shifted into a completely different person, but how do you express that to a person without hurting their feelings? You can't. And so once I recognized we were crossing that threshold to where they were really getting invested, that's when I would have to back up because they were going into a place that I wasn't willing to go.
Mos Def got a few lines on his song Climb, on his first album, Black on Both Sides, where he says, nighttime is where the things get heavy. You feel alone and you want somebody. You frantic all by yourself. So when you started to realize that it was, and I love how you put that, the difference between daytime candidates and nighttime candidates, I think a lot of women can relate to that.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, we are the ones pursuing y'all, so you kind of get to pick and choose when you want to entertain somebody. At what point did you start to take on, I guess, the onus, the responsibility, if that's not too strong of a word, of kind of like drawing the line in the sand and understand, even though I may want this at nighttime, I don't really want this, because you did go on a period of 4 years of celibacy. You didn't go into it completely intentional, but I'm sure some of these moments and realizations contributed to that. So at what point did you start to take that onus and draw that line in the sand? That nighttime sensation wasn't enough no more.
Yeah, this was really hard for me because I didn't want to hurt people's feelings. But ghosting them and detaching in the way that I did was doing the exact same thing. But it was easier. Right. It wasn't even easier for me.
Because you still got to carry that.
I still got to. Yeah. I still got to. Every time I see their number, I run into them. I have to explain. It was just really hard. I was a runner. And when I would tell them about, not daytime, nighttime, I never broke it down to them in that way, but when I would tell them that I didn't feel how they felt, then I gotta feel bad. Then we gotta have a conversation about it. They will accept it, and then they won't accept it. They'll still go back to being that same aggressive and persistent in trying to get me to change my mind. And so that took a really long, even up to being a police officer, I still had people on block. I still was ghosting people. And I'm not saying that in a way of being boastful about it. It was something that was painful to me. I didn't know how to use my words. I didn't know how to ask for what I needed, and I didn't know how to hurt people's feelings or how not to hurt people's feelings in the process. I didn't know what to do. And I would try, and they would be hurt, but they would continue being persistent. So it's still a level of aggression that I'm like, well, what do I do with this? You know what I'm saying? I actually do want to continue talking to this person and being their friend. They don't have the capacity to allow me to be their friend. And they are still aggressive, so I have to cut them off. And I didn't really grow out of that until I was possibly like 27. And I was still practicing using my words, saying what it was. But I recognized if I don't do it, they won't.
Right.
So I can't say, oh, well, I gave you all the information. I told you I didn't want a relationship up front. I told you I didn't want anything serious. I felt like at some point that was very irresponsible because they'll say, oh yeah, I know, it's okay, I don't want a relationship either, but I know that they're not being honest. I know that they do want a relationship with me, and they'll go with whatever I say. If I'm not serious about them, then it is my responsibility to end it and end it for good. And so it wasn't until I was about 27 where I really just owned that it's my responsibility, not to wait for them to say, oh, I accept your terms of the agreement. It's for me to actually put a pin in it.
I got one more question, and we'll finish up with that last question. But based on what you just said, I literally just saw a post today that I commented on, and it was a woman that's married, this black woman that's married, and she, you know, when I go to the club with my friends still, men like to buy me drinks. I accept them for the most part, unless I haven't seen a drink be made as a matter of safety and stuff like that. But she was like, for the most part, I accept the drinks, and her husband was taken aback by the fact that she accepts the drinks. And everybody commenting, and they was more so talking about the potential violation in the relationship. But for me, it was more so about that man that may be in that club or wherever you at, that may genuinely be looking for a connection, and you sitting here siphoning some of his money, his energy to be able to invest in somebody that's open to that. So that coupled with what you're talking about, when you was experiencing that, and I'm sure a lot of women could relate, there wasn't a term like love bombing when you was 20 years old, right? That's become popular over the last few years. So how do you feel about that gray area that men got to kind of flex in, where societal, feminine energy as far as society is saying, give to us, love on us, show up, and you know what I mean, all these different things. But then when we start to do some of that, now we're hearing that it's coming across as love bombing and being too much. What would be your advice for us to be able to walk that line, and for women to be able to express specifically how they would like a man that they're interested in to show up?
Yeah, I think this is a conversation, because when you're dealing with a woman, she needs to know what she wants, and she needs to know how she wants it. And so when you are able to ask the question, what do you want? How do you want me to love you? What does that look like? What does it mean to you? When you get into those nuances, now the man no longer has to guess. He doesn't have to love bomb her. He doesn't have to go through 50,000 gestures to show love, because now he can hone in on exactly what she wants, what she needs, what she desires, and what she asks for. And I think that will really kind of block out all of the gray area of men showing up in a way to, because now if you show up in a way that you feel like a person wants to be loved, and they don't want to be loved that way, you have to feel like you're not good enough.
Facts.
You have to feel like you wasted your time. You have to feel like the person's not grateful, like they're not acknowledging your efforts. And if you want your efforts to be acknowledged, then ask the person what type of effort are they looking for. Now, granted, it's still not right. If I show up for you and I do things for you, then it is still your job to acknowledge my effort and I acknowledge what you've done for me. I love it. Thank you. I know it came from the heart. This is how I receive love. This is how I feel love. This is what love looks like for me. Do you have the capacity to show up in these ways so I can actually feel your gestures and they land in the heart?
And do you think, like, on a wide scale, on a general scale, it's detrimental to interpersonal relationships, especially between black men and black women, where women have kind of just accepted, he want to buy me dinner? I got my guys that I go on dates with just to go get dinner, right? I got my work husband that bring me lunch every day. Do you think that impacts the people, the brothers that are trying to figure out how to go about loving on women that they're pursuing? Do you feel like that can be, it can make it convoluted and confusing for us?
Absolutely, because women are using men.
So you would perceive that as using?
I would perceive that as using. If someone asks me to go out on a date because they're interested in me, and I say, oh, I'm just about to go get free dinner, you're using that person. Like, that's a characteristic that is not healthy.
I've never heard a woman say that.
Yeah, that's not healthy. It's not okay to just go on a date so you can get free food, because that's an invitation. If a man says, I want to take you out on a date because I'm interested in you, and you have no interest in him, you just want to eat, you've created an invitation that kind of leads him into the idea that you are open to
Right.
getting to know him as well, but your intentions are completely different. There's a lot of karma that comes with that as well, because you've gone into this with unhealthy and unprocessed emotions, intentions, and you are to some degree leading a person on, and they have to spend their monetary funds just for you to eat, and you have absolutely no interest in them. I don't think that's right. I think that's a huge character flaw.
And you mentioned the word karma. What, on a spiritual level, what message do you feel like that's sending to the universe for the women that do that?
That is what most people on Instagram would call vampiric energy, energy vampire, someone who only has the intention to take, someone that only has the intention to have their needs met, someone that does not care about the other person, because what if he needs that $150?
Right.
Let most of them tell it that the first date don't cost $150, it costs $200 to $300.
Right.
So what if he needs that for his kids, or it can go towards something that's actually meaningful to him, but he's trying to impress you and trying to create some type of relationship with you, and you only there for the food? That's nothing but vampiric energy, and the energy that's not being reciprocated, because you're only taking. You're only looking out for you. You're only doing what's best for you. The other person is doing nothing but giving. There is a karma that comes with taking and not replenishing what you took. There's karma that comes with not reciprocating energy. There's karma that comes with not having an equal energy exchange when you're only taking for your own benefit. Now women get into other relationships and they have a man that only want to have sex with them, and then they don't call him no more. But now all men are shit. But they didn't acknowledge that all men wasn't shit when you was eating this man's food because he was a good guy. So now the karma has come back to you. People don't reciprocate your energy. They don't reciprocate your love. They don't show up for you in the way that you need, or the way that you deserve, or the way that you desire, because you don't see other people as that level of importance.
We good. We good.